Tom, before you give any more specs, I'm going to throw a loop at you. This is a big loop. Here's what I did. Since we don't normally do reviews and we want to do honest reviews in the field, not just talking about what the specs are as reported by the manufacturers, what I did was to take my IC-7300 and this Radioddity QT-80 back to back with the same antenna, talking on 10 meters with a guy on ground wave, so there wouldn't be all the flutter and all, to see how on his end he thought of the difference between the two rigs, the audio as well as the power level. Tom, this is going to be weird because you and I don't normally do rig reviews, but I have been interested in these Chinese radios coming out. I know you've played around with some of them, at least the HT and that kind of thing. Right. But I really want to know more about the Chinese rigs, test them out. So we are both going to report on what we found with the Radioddity QT-80 radio. Now, we're doing this in part because we're interested in testing out the quality of it as people who have not used Chinese HF radios. But it's also got some interesting features beyond how it's advertised, as we'll talk about as well. And so we put it through its paces. Now, Tom, what exactly is this radio for?
Well, this radio is specifically for 10 meters. However, you can open it up and expand the frequencies on it for 15 meters through 10 meters and all the way up to 30 megahertz. So it's got a lot of good flexibility.
Yeah, it's interesting in that regard. It's advertised as 10 meters, but it's got this broad potential, and we put it through some of the paces, as you'll see, to see how it worked and what the power outputs were and the like. Because it's a fairly inexpensive radio, and we'll talk precisely about the pricing in just a little bit. Again, we both had the radios, we both tested them out, and even did some comparisons with another radio. But before we get to all of that, let's go ahead and look at the unboxing of the Radioddity QT-80. Here we go. Here's the unboxing of the Radioddity QT-80. This is the box that arrives in. It is, as we've said, a 10-meter radio that can be expanded to other things. So you open the box, and here is the instruction manual for the QT-80 10-meter amateur radio. And the instructions look pretty good in here. I looked through it already, and I'm pretty impressed with the way they put it together. The English is good. It's understandable. Goes through all of the major things that you need to look at. Over on this side, they have the parts that you need for the mounting bracket. I'll show you that bracket in just a moment. And they also have an extra fuse, and they have here the microphone holder. So that's one item in the box. Here we have the cable with USB to attach to the radio on this end, and then to your computer for programming if you want to do that. You can do the programming you want to really just using the buttons on the front of the radio too. Here we have the Radioddity microphone. Radioddity microphone. Right here you can see it's got the nice buttons on the top for various functions, down, up, and the like. It's got fair weight to it. It's substantive, usual connector that's used for a radio like this. Here we have the power supply cord. Notice the type of connector that they have here with this one. And then the other side, of course, you put on whatever you'd like. So they do have a fuse on the radio here to connect to. Let's go ahead and get the rig itself out. Well, here's the mounting bracket. It's a good solid steel mounting bracket. Here's the radio. It's got some heft to it. It's a hefty little radio, and let's take the bag off of there. Comes like this. You can see the front. The knobs feel quite solid here. All of the functions really that the radio has are available through this menu system. You can see over here some additional labeling for it. Here's that major heatsink on the back for this 80 watt HF radio. PL259. There's where you plug in the cable to connect to your computer for programming if you wish to do that. And here is for an external speaker. So this has been the basic radio as it comes with the parts included. Now, what I did was to order the whole package with some additional parts. So this included the radio, which was normally $306.99, discounted to $279. And then it included a heat dissipation holder. I'll show that to you in a minute. An external speaker. You see 0 here because it's all part of the package. A CB antenna, and a downloadable ebook on HF, VHF, and UHF Beginner's Guide. So all of this for, with the taxes included to Michigan here, $279 plus $16.74, $295.74. Yet they claim, as you can see here, that the MSRP, as they say in car lingo, it was $306.99. So let's look at the additional parts that I got with this package deal. And we'll start here with this extra speaker. The external speaker, Radioddity power output is 5 watts, impedance 8 ohms, of course, jack type 3.5. That fits in the back of the rig. The cable length is 71 inches. And this is what the external speaker looks like. It's a little smaller than I expected, but actually, for mobile use, it's probably good to have it smaller. A couple of screws there for mounting this as well if you want. So this was part of the package. And then also, as part of the package, was this. Now this is going to blow your mind. Aluminum alloy creative laptop stand. Notice how on here they called it a stand with heat dissipation holder. And then they said for the Zygu G90, wide compatibility. Yeah, wide compatibility. Okay, so aluminum alloy creative top stand. So I opened this up because I wanted to take a look at this one. It was so small, and I opened it up. Hardly any instructions, but you don't really need them. It comes in kind of this fake velvet little bag. This is what intrigued me. It looks like skis. And so I pulled this out and I said, what in the world? And then I realized that this is basically a computer holder or a book holder. And in fact, when I looked in the instructions here, one of the pictures they showed, you can't probably see this very well at all, is a book. It looks like somebody's got a Bible on it, this little holder like that. So it's set up like this, and you can change the width. You can mount this somewhere and then put the radio on it like this. And for this radio here, let me get this connected properly or put it in place here. This is not bad because the speaker is underneath, so you want the sound out. You've got the heat dissipation still in the back because it's not quite touching the ground there. So that's the stand, if you want to call it that. The book stand, the computer stand, whatever that comes with it, and can be packed up that way. Then they also included in the package here this, what they called a CB antenna. So I will pull this out. You can see here 2 parts to it. This is the actual antenna. It says 27 megahertz right on there. So the tuning for 28 megahertz, the 10-meter band, I'm not sure about that. We'll have to test it. But then here's the base. It's a magnetic antenna. So it's a BNC connector that fits in here, and there you go. So that goes up on metal on the car. Here's the PL259 that would go into the back of the rig. So this is basically what you get along with the manual if you buy the whole package. And it seems to me the whole package discounted the way it is really a pretty good deal. So that's the unpacking of the Radioddity QT-80 10-meter amateur radio, which also will, with modification, work on 12 meters and 15 meters. So that was the unboxing. Now, one of the things I mentioned in there, Tom, was this package that it comes with that includes a CB antenna, because I think the assumption is that they are believing a lot of people who will buy this are CBers who want a rig that'll go beyond 5 or 10 watts. And so they might purchase this. I'm not sure why they would, just for that, because the rig has other capabilities as well. And it seems to me to be a better rig for hams normally to use. But then also, if you're in the car, even as a ham, a licensed ham, and you want to use it on CB with a lower power and an antenna that'll take that power, it could work. But the thing that they send it along with that 10-meter antenna that has the little magnet mount for a car. So you looked at the SWR on that antenna. What did you find out?
Right, I put that on my antenna analyzer, and as I swept the frequency with it, it's centered on 27.15 megahertz, which is right at the beginning of the CB band. So I would caution anybody who desired to use that antenna on 10 or 12 meters, don't. It is way out of spec for being operated on the ham bands.
And so to add to this, I put it on one of my rigs with a tuner. And then I went on 28.4, the calling frequency on 10 meters, and I was able to tune it up. Now, with a real good tuner. Now, how well it would work with that, I don't know. But so that's one thing to be aware of. On the other hand, if you're going to use this rig in part as a CB rig, let's say a mobile CB rig, you've got an antenna with it in that package deal. It's quite a good deal, I think, overall. So the rig specs, Tom, we, as hams are always interested in specs. And tell us a little bit more about the specs of this rig.
Okay, well, it's spec'd out at 80 watts on the high power setting. And I used it on 24.9 digital, as that would be 12 meters. And I got pretty close to 80 watts. It was about 75, 76 watts output on my meter. So 80 watts on 12, on 10 meters, I got about 65. I didn't try it on 15. For some reason, on my antenna, I couldn't load anything with a decent standing wave, so I disregarded trying it on 15 meters. But
so let me break in here a minute, Tom, because I did try it on 15 just to see what would happen. And I was getting, depending on where I was in the 15 band, I was getting from about 45 to 60 watts out on 15 meters, which of course for digital is great.
Right, and that's the same thing I experienced. It was about 50, a little bit over, a little bit under 50 watts, but I don't like pushing it to the maximum. So when I'm running digital, I'll generally kick that back to 25 or 30 watts. It is doable, but don't expect a full 80 watt output on 15 meters. The other thing I like about it, it's got all the modes on it. It's got FM, AM, upper and lower sideband, and CW. So it's very flexible as far as the modes go. FM in particular for the 10 meter band. It's got very good advanced noise reduction. I tried that on both transmit and receive, and that worked very well. It's got automatic squelch, which I haven't tried yet, on this particular radio. I have run a ASQ on my CB rigs, and that's a very handy thing to have. You don't listen to a bunch of squawking and squealing and whatever with the ASQ engaged.
Yeah,
It
and you
has
spend a lot of time in the car and
Right.
Using CB in terms of communication with people on the road, listening to what's happening and so on. So for you, that's an important feature.
Right. The LCD display on it is a very good size. I would guesstimate it's about 7/8 to an inch high and about 4.5 inches wide. The numbers are very legible on it. It's got a 7-color variety you could plug into it.
The screens, yeah.
Screens, right? I'm running it with the black on white, paper white, just because it's more legible.
Yeah.
But you could get carried away. It's like those Christmas tree lights that you could change it to whatever mood you want.
Right.
And
Tom, before you give any more specs, I'm going to throw a loop at you. This is a big loop. Here's what I did. Since we don't normally do reviews and we want to do honest reviews in the field, not just talking about what the specs are as reported by the manufacturers, what I did was to take my IC-7300 and this Radioddity QT-80 back to back with the same antenna, talking on 10 meters with a guy on ground wave, so there wouldn't be all the flutter and all, to see how on his end he thought of the difference between the two rigs, the audio as well as the power level. So watch this, gang. K8QS. Listen, buddy, I want to run a test with you, and I'm going to compare two rigs. I've got one rig going now. I'm not going to tell you what they are, but this is rig number 1. Take a look at my signal. I should be, very strong since you're on ground wave. And also you can check out my audio. See what you think of my audio. See what you think about my signal. This is rig number 1. Okay, here we go. How are you doing there, Tim? What do I sound like? This is K8QS.
The audio sounds a little like you've got a little more mid and high range. The first one a little bassier, but they're both nice. Over.
Okay, and do you notice any difference in the signals at all?
No, signal strength is pretty amazing, actually.
Okay, Tom. Now I'm telling you, this was a weird thing to do. I didn't tell him which rig was which, and my buddy could not tell on the receiving end the difference between the IC-7300 at 100 watts and this QT-80 at 80 watts. And in fact, he told me later, it's not on the recording, that he actually liked the audio quality on the QT-80 better for if I were DXing. He said it really punches through. And there's a high cut thing on the rig that you can put in there.
Right.
So he was delighted that I surprised him that way and tested it. So now we're not saying that these are equivalent rigs in all respects. Obviously, they're not in terms of the bands covered and the level of notching on the SDR and all of that. But it's an interesting thing to invest in a piece of equipment like the QT-80 that's not real expensive, and to be able to get good performance like that on 10 meters, which is what it's engineered and designed for. I think that's a great test.
Oh, yeah. And I've tested it too against my Kenwood on digital, and on FT8, I had noticed that there's hardly any difference in the signal reports. There isn't any difference on the span of distances that I was able to cover, and the frequency stability was amazing. I would run the same test, ping-ponging back between the two units and then checking out my reports on PSK Reporter and on the FT8 application, and it was amazing. I'm talking $1,000 rig versus a a $300 rig. So they're very quite compatible. I was amazed. And
Yeah,
I would
and
think
again,
a technician who wants to get their feet wet in 10 meters, this would be an absolute sterling rig to start out with. It's inexpensive, it's very flexible, and I think it would give a technician a good preview of what HF is.
yeah, we should say here that the modification to get it from just 10 meters to include everything from 15 meters up to 30 is a simple modification. And we will put a link here on YouTube down to somebody else who shows you how to do that. There's no sense in us doing it because it's real simple. It'll take you 2 minutes to watch the video and see how to do that. And obviously, when you look at that, you're going to see that it was designed to be very easy to convert like that. So, Tom, running it with a digital mode like that, how did you connect it?
Okay,
With your audio.
there is on the radio. There's no data port, and also there's no CW jack or a headphone jack. Now, I've got some workarounds. The headphones could be plugged into the external speaker jack. But what you're seeing right there is a pinout of the microphone plug going into 2 PC plugs, and you run that through the sound card, an external sound card. Now, one thing I would want to mention here on the external sound card is, if you want to switch over here, Quinn, to me.
Yep. Go ahead and.
Okay. This is one of those cheap USB sound cards. You don't want to use one of these. There's no separation between the inputs and the outputs. There's very little separation. What I would suggest, and I'll just move my camera here, is this is an external sound card. I've used this on both my Kenwoods, and I'm using it on the QT-80. It has transformers in it to give you enough separation between the inputs and the outputs, so you get a much cleaner signal and a quite better view when you're looking at, if you're using FL Digi or using the JT4 application. So it is adjustable, and I would definitely go with one of those. Also, there's a way of setting up for CW using a similar pin out by taking pins 3 and 5, taking those out from the 6-pin jack to your CW key, which is essentially engaging your PTT.
Okay, and as you're reporting, it worked fine.
It works absolutely normal.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, that's great. And so it does have all these modes. One of the interesting things about the unit that you can use. And Tom, thanks for your work on that in terms of the quality of the sound card, because that can be an issue. We need to talk about something that people talk about with Chinese radios, and they make jokes about this, and that is the difficulty in programming them.
Right.
Okay, and in the early days of the Chinese HTs coming in, it was to the point where there were people out there you could pay to program the radio for you because it was somewhat complicated. I'll give you my opinion too, but what's your opinion on the difficulty of programming it?
All right. Compared to an HT, where I've used Chirp for programming, this is very easy. I didn't even use the software to program the radio. If the instructions in the manual are very clear and concise, if you go through it step by step, you can easily program this thing through the face of the radio. I see no reason at all to have to defer to using the software program to get this thing set up where you want it.
Yeah, so why do you think they included the cord or the cable to hook up to the
Which
computer?
uh, that is for programming. If you go to the Radioddity site, you can download the software for programming the radio.
If you want
It
to
is
do it
not
that way.
right. It's not programmable through Chirp. Chirp is probably the most universal programming system out there for Chinese radios. In fact, I think Chirp stands for Chinese Radio Programmer. But it's not supposed to work with this radio, and I didn't attempt to try to use it.
That's good. Now, I had the same experience using the manual. I could work through and figure out how to do things. I just, the one thing that threw me, and it's not a big thing, is how long you have to press a particular button to engage the next thing that you then can control through the different options and all with the main control. And there is a soft push or a short push, and then there's a longer push.
Right.
If I can call it that. And so once I figured that out, it was easy to program. And the manual, as I mentioned when I did the unboxing, is pretty well written. I would say compared to other manuals I've seen, even for much more expensive rigs, that the manual did not include a lot of information, but what it included is the basic stuff in very short form with lists. Click on this button and this is the list,
Right.
and then go with the main knob to whatever you want, that kind of stuff that even with the Japanese rigs that are out there that are much more expensive, pretty much if you're not doing it through a cable to a computer, that's the way you're going to do it anyway. So I didn't have any trouble with that. So again, gang, this is our first rig review. We bought the Radioddity QT-80. We're both big fans of HF. I'm a big fan of sideband these days because I've had 2 hand surgeries and arthritis and all. I won't get into all my health problems. That's what happens when I get together with friends now, But so CW is a bit problematic. The keyboard, it gets to be a bit much for me. So I've gotten really into phone, and I can tell you, Tom, that the rig performed on phone, at least on sideband for me, really well. I tried to contact somebody on AM, maybe on 10 meters, but there was nobody out there. I couldn't get anybody on. But I like the rig. I'm proud to own a copy or the rig as a longtime ham extra class operator for many, many years. And the fact that it also operates on CB and that it might be used by some CBers, higher power, doesn't bother me at all. It's an ethical decision for them as to what they're going to do with that. What I like about the fact is that you can open this thing up and run it like you have from 15 meters down through 10. So I give it a good review, Tom. What about you?
Yeah, I concur. I give it a good review also. It was a lot better than I expected, actually. I expected the manual to be more cumbersome. Actually, the manual works like a flow chart. If you're if you're familiar with the flow chart, the manual works exactly the same way. I've had good luck with it. I've compared it to my Kenwood, and I see very little difference, if any at all, between $1,000 radio and a $300 under $300 radio. So I'm quite pleased with the purchase. I know you're going to put yours in your RV.
Yeah.
I might put mine in a boat, and we'll just see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, I'm going to test a couple of different antennas with this rig in the motorhome that we have, a Winnebago motorhome. I want to go back to the price. Now, we're not an affiliate here. We don't get a percentage of links over to buy this. But we will put a link down below so you can easily find it. Maybe it's easy to find. I don't know. Oh, before I say another thing about the pricing, Tom, I know when you look at some of these reviews of Chinese equipment, people will say, well, it's the equivalent rig of X company that puts their name on it and so on and so forth. We are not going to do that because we don't know for certain that everything in the unit and the circuit board and so forth is exactly the same, even though people will say it's the same. So since we don't have that information, we're not going to put that in there. So we're going to say we got them from Radioddity, and we got it through their website. Again, it was $279 here, as I showed in the unboxing with the whole package, and quite a deal, I think, if you want to look at that. So we'll put a link down below. Tom, this has been fun. I think we ought to do a couple more reviews, but we did this one because we both tested it out, and we both concluded that it's well worth the money. Any other final observations from you, Tom?
Yeah, I think as we continue on testing radios, we need to be two things. One is thorough, and the other one is fair. Fair to the ham community that we're giving a review on a useful piece of information, the pluses and the minuses.
Yeah, I should add one more thing that I did that didn't talk about in the review. Since I had the two rigs set up there to do that comparison between the 7300 and the QT-80, that quasi comparison anyway, I also, in transmitting with the Radioddity, I was looking at for spikes and everything with the IC-7300 to see how clean the signal was. And boy, it looked like a clean signal. Now, there are people that have much better equipment than that to test that. But from our standpoint, it looked clean, even on the bands or frequencies that it's not advertised for, that is beyond 10 meters. So thanks, everybody, for tuning in. If you have other comments or experiences with this radio, or you want to disagree with us in some way, post your comments down below. We're open to learning from whomever. And we hope that this has been helpful in you making a decision maybe about getting a rig or a second rig to use on a boat, an RV, or dedicated to digital modes. So thanks, everybody. We'll see you again.